All right, enough of you internet people asked for this. We're finally doing it. We've been trying to schedule this for a few months now, actually, was when we first reached out, wasn't it, Evan?
Well, we've known it's coming. We're just,
Yes, that's what
trying
I
to
mean.
coordinate
It was a couple
schedules.
months ago
So,
when we first
yeah.
reached out to make this happen. But yeah, this bass drum video has been a long time coming. People have asked for it, but like, because we're snare drummers, obviously, for any new people that don't know, we know enough about quad playing to get by, but like bass drumming is an animal in and of itself, especially like the state that it's gotten to nowadays, where it's gotten as crazy as it's ever been in terms of difficulty and the pace at which things these bass lines are doing come and go so fast that if you don't know what to listen to, you're like, yeah, bass, basically, because it sounded even. And so hopefully today's video can shed some light on that. But this is Aged Out Reaction to host the Aged Out podcast, Michael Fantini,
Evan Worrell.
and all the links to support us financially or on social media, all that stuff in the video description, Aged Out Fundamentals, agedout.com. Grab a shirt, sticker. All right, Evan, you want to grab it, and we'll get in as fast as we can.
Yeah. So joining us from Washington, D.C. is Dadisi Sanyika. What's up, man?
What's up? It's nice to be here.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming
man.
on.
We're
Yeah,
glad to have
definitely.
you. For those who maybe don't know as much about you or don't follow you on social media, tell everyone a little bit, just your kind of run through of your marching experience and what you're up to now.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the game for a long time. I started marching in 2014 with Alliance, which is a long gong drum corps. But I spent 7 years with Quest from 15 in Q2 all the way to 21. I marched Phantom Regiment 17, 18, Bluecoats 19, 20, 21, X 22, and now I'm in the Commandant zone. I play bass drum for a living, and then I teach bass drum on the weekends. It's just a daily bass drum in my life.
Pretty sweet setup.
Yeah,
It's
honestly.
great.
And to tease the folks out there, he was telling us that he's been in the works of a pretty comprehensive kind of bass drum book, all you can eat and breathe bass
Yeah.
drum, which you can do a little hint of that, and then we'll come back to it
Yeah.
later.
I mean, this is like the first time I've really announced it publicly, so that's cool. But like, the OGs know about like a bass drum packet that I released in 2020 called Knowing Bass Drum, and for the past like 5 years, people have been coming to me about that and asking me like, when are you gonna do more? So it's coming finally. Knowing Bass Drum, the complete edition. It's like 100 pages long. Yeah, it's been
Wow.
like 5 years in the making. There's 30 sections and like subsections with like rhythm, timing, sound. There's a whole comprehensive rudiment dictionary for bass drum, which is like a first of its kind. 40 rudiments in there. There's a Czech dictionary. Like there's just so much. There's etudes. One of the etudes hasn't even been played yet, so that will come out with the release of the book.
Nice.
This is a lot of fun. And I just also want to shout out like Noah Cole because he's been helping me edit this book for a while, and he's been super valuable for this as well. I've been working with Nick Ferris to help get it published, so it'll be released on his website. Um, yeah, I don't know exactly when. Hopefully, we can start shipping like late July, early August. But if you keep up with me on Instagram at underscore downbeats underscore, you'll be able to keep up with the release of the book.
Sick.
Heck yeah. So that'll be sweet. When that all comes and is ready to go and launched and out there, we'll have to come back and do a follow up and go through all that and have a more comprehensive. But for today, we just wanted to have you on to educate us, Mike and I, as well as our audience, viewers, fans, and whoever else, judges, arrangers, people who are getting new into the game to writing for high schools. Just things that
Yeah.
you appreciate, things that stick out, things that maybe grind your gears. Who knows? We
Some
might
Mhm.
not
things
go
that
down that
people
avenue, but
don't know are difficult, because that's something I try to do with like the flatline drumming on here. Point things out that maybe your average or younger member might not know is hard because it isn't super flashy, but like there's difficulty
Yeah.
to it that really only a snare drummer is going to understand or an experienced bass drummer is going to understand. So just stuff that'll allow us to appreciate the excellence going on in these crazy bass lines nowadays. So
Definitely.
all right, we're going to switch scenes to the Bluecoats 2018 first. And just tell us to pause whenever you want us to talk, or we'll just go from there.
Yeah. Let me just say that like I chose this line because what you're about to see is like it is probably the most you could ask a bass line to do.
Okay, that's a
They're
statement.
about yeah. I mean they with no metronome, not even for reference, they just play through their entire show, which is that's difficult, and that's like mastery of
Yeah.
the instrument and of the music. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's see
All
it.
right. So that was hard, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, right off the bat, one thing that I noticed
I'll
as a
pause.
snare drummers, we always talk about add-ins on snare drum when people are adding in cleanly to the established tempo, time, and rhythm that like a snare drum is like, oh, that add-in was clean. So I would imagine same thing from bass drum ensemble too. Like the 5 of them as they're adding in, starting with 5 and gradually throwing in. Just even though the simple ostinato, chum 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 chum, but just feeling tempo and space the same. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing for like whenever they start these splits, like a lot of times they'll just there's a lot of duts in between this stuff and they just cold attack with like a split. And those sort of things like you have to agree exactly on time and like if one bass drummer is like early, like ahead of the beat and one bass drummer is like behind the beat, like they might still be playing like in the tempo, but those things aren't going to align. But
Right.
they do this really well, just like off the duts too, which is
And
crazy.
then one question from me before we play that phrase again and let it keep going. At the one point when I asked, that's hard, right? Where the top two, was that all the same thing? They were just splitting it back like hand to hands. What was that?
I think those were just threes.
We can hear it
but
again if you want to.
yeah, definitely. I think it was just threes. But again, it's just like how well they maintain that rhythm that is impressive about it.
Okay.
Yeah, like threes, twos, and fours in there, just all like sextuplet bass rhythms. Like these cold attacks and like muffled unisons off the unisons, off the duts. Like if your bassline can do this, there's nothing more you can ask of them in this music.
Like keeping the pulse between all 5 of them on their own perfectly like this, and then
yeah, they just achieve the beats. Like there's no maintenance needed on this. With all the body too, like
especially maintaining the balance player to player while doing the body as well. Not only rhythmically, but just the sound they're producing.
Yeah, those are some great unisons, like within like all those movements and stuff.
And I feel like too, unisons are, I don't want to say underappreciated, but underappreciated.
But I will.
Just the full sonority you get from all 5, like hitting balanced and blended velocity. Same way we talk about on the flat lines, just like that velocity in the drum that's all hitting at the same time, the clarity. In muffled unisons just can really pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah. I think what is impressive about these lines is not like always that they play the flashiest stuff, but they play it like professionals. A lot of people approach bass drum and they're like, all right, if this hand to hand like sounds like something, I just did the greatest thing ever. But it's really just like, is this like a pleasant sound that we're creating? You know what I mean? Like there's deeper levels to like the quality of the sound that they're achieving really well, and that we'll see with like other lines with this video as well.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. One more thing about this video is that there's no cuts. They literally play this whole show straight through.
That's
like
a good
the camera
point.
never cuts. He's about to just tap off a different tempo, and then they just play a new chunk, and it's just as great.
That is true. No retries.
Yeah. like that. That's what we're talking about with cold attacks. Like they can just
They're
play
all-
that rhythm off of nothing.
Just interpreting the same way.
Yep. Yep. Nice hand in hand with like the crescendo as well. Yep. Some like syncopated rhythms. That stuff is really
Jeez.
pretty difficult, especially with no met.
Oof.
Yeah.
So that
And like
too, that
is-
up and down.
Yeah, is there a name for that?
Sorry, I was thinking about those like 2s and 4s they're playing. If you rewind it again, I can tell you.
But yeah, just those individual bass drummers too, getting like the dynamic range of like the attack on like those kind of like decrescendo singles or whatever that figure was.
hmm There's a point in here where they start. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Every one of these are those cult attacks you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Just off the nuts. I think it's this phrase here. Yeah, this.
Jeez.
Yeah, so what you were talking about, Evan, those are just 3s. But it's just written in a smart way to where it sounds more difficult than it is. But I don't know. I think you have to find those moments when like you're doing too much, and maybe you can achieve the same thing and like achieve like the general sound that you're trying to get without doing like something crazy hard.
Yeah.
So like that figure, it sounds like it's like moving down the drums really quick, but just like with some good phrasing, we can like have 3s sound a lot harder than they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You still feel that 8th note pulsing.
And that concept exists in flat world too. I mean, there's things drum lines do all the time that seem like they would be difficult, but they're written in a way that makes them sound difficult. When you look at what they're actually doing, it's like, oh, it's just like some paradiddle figures with singles in it or something or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that those concepts relate really well to like drum set too. And like bass drumming relates so well to drum set just because you're hearing all these parts be one thing. And you have somebody playing drum set and they're just like splitting paradiddles on the hi-hat and snare drum. But you're like, oh man, this is like some crazy thing, but we're just playing paradiddles, but where it's split and it sounds even, it sounds cool.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no words said in between this two. Like they've done this a million times probably.
Oh, for sure. Shut up, snare drums.
Jeez. So much space.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, the rim clicks into those 8th note unisons.
I just can't get over the consistency of sound, like within the splits and just like all the player-to-player balance. It's just incredible. Were those 4s?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's so great with this writing too is like what you were talking about. You don't always have to do the hardest thing. You have these bursts, and then it opens up.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of times, like writers, I think will just put the hard bass drum stuff in like upper battery spaces, and then you get like easier bass drum stuff and like when the upper battery is more dense.
Yeah. They play more of a supporting role when the flatline's going nuts or playing some weird, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's just it's effective writing. Like it keeps the audience member engaged. Like, okay, snare drum to quad, and then the bass is filling the gaps while the snare drums and quads are playing big notes and big units, double stops and stuff, and it just works.
I think when when your book does come out too, and you like you're talking about like the rudimental library of bass drumming. I feel like those are the things that people need to understand too from like the judging community, because as bass drumming has evolved, you have to know those things to be able to like call it out and credit it. Because I think one of people's frustrations, and I'm sure you've probably had this frustration too, maybe as a bass drum member yourself, is you get done playing this thing and there's all these rudiments, bass drum rudiments that you guys are doing and throwing down, and then it's just bass, and you're like,
yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Did you understand? Are you crediting it? Like, do you comprehend it, or just like, did it just go by so fast that's all you could say?
I will say that's one of those things that's a difficulty of judging bass drum. I think, especially high level bass drum stuff, comes and goes really quick. And if you're not like super trained on it, or bass drum wasn't your thing, you might not be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, definitely.
In the heat of the moment, following a drum line, well, not following a drum line around anymore, but you know what I mean. Like, you're in front of the drum line, and like the snares are playing, the quads are playing. Your ears will be piqued by just random bass run into space, and like maybe all you have the capacity to comprehend is even rhythms. Awesome, the rhythms they played split were even. Yeah, bass, move on. I don't know. It just comes and goes so quick.
Yeah, I mean, in my book, I define like 7 essential bass drum rudiments, and these are like the most common things. And I say that like you can write a full drumline book with just these rudiments, and you could probably win drums, because a lot of what is so impressive about bass drum is like the phrasing and the touch and the consistency. And I think it's really sort of up to the writer to make sure that if you're going to play something like complex, play some like hybrid bass drum rudiments, which I get into as well. Like it needs to be phrased in a way where it's just like right in front, easy to like latch onto,
digestible.
Yeah, exactly. So like I also teach at George Mason, and that was exactly what we did, right? Like with the Yankee Doodle bass break, we were like, okay, we need to have these things like so front and center that you couldn't possibly miss it.
Yeah, we're going to spoon feed this to you.
Yeah, exactly. We did have, and I mean, at least in my opinion, like the issue of like the consistency of the judging over the show, where, you know, judges will credit that Yankee Doodle bass break, but then we have another phrase that people always forget about. But it was really difficult. It took a lot of work. It was a lot of like syncopated rhythms, and that's when we would get like the bass, because again, it just wasn't so like on a platter for them. But even in that. We weren't doing like any crazy splits, but it was just the phrasing and the consistency that is what made it cool.
Yep. All right. Do we want to watch the rest of this, or want to move to a different video now?
We can move on. Definitely.
Sure.
Encourage everyone to come check out the finished product of that, though.
Yes. Do you want to do Vanguard or Crown?
Let's do Crown.
Okay.
Yeah, I put this in just because I feel like this baseline just isn't talked about enough. Like, I don't know, from my perspective.
And one thing that sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you're good. You're good.
I was gonna say one thing that I notice a lot that I like with Mike Jackson's bass drum too is like he'll do like counter melody stuff, like with the bass drum writing. It's I'm like okay.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Like the layering, you know, you don't need the bass line to play like one phrase, right? Like he sort of looks at it as, I mean, mostly for him, like 6 different instruments, because he has 6 bass drums. So he'll have like, you know, bass 6 playing like some rhythm on top of like a split on the top 3 or something like that. Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting.
Yep. All right.
I think the like 2:30 mark.
Okay. Let me scoot up to it. 2:30. There we go. To include chat. All right.
Yeah. They're about to start playing their bass break here, or one of them at least, I guess.
Was it like a buzz from drum to like a zoop? Again?
Yeah, a little rough.
Coming out of that buzz was cool. The unison buzz into the split.
And the next level of the crescendos while you're moving.
Yeah, with the geography.
Yeah.
those roughs. That's so cool.
And this is just like that mastery of sound quality, right?
Yeah.
Just sounds beautiful, you know.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Beyond just like playing correct rhythms. But,
Yeah,
you know.
you can pause it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's more to it than just hitting the rhythms, right? Like I think something I remember being told is to play your bass drum like you're a chamber musician, you know. Like if you were on stage by yourself, like how would you approach sound quality, right? And with the writing here, I want to point out that sometimes like you can have some really dense stuff or something that seems really hard, and the way to write it smartly is to just look at what each bass drummer is doing. So if you like look at all their hands, they never look uncomfortable with what they're playing. They're never having like any weird sort of transitions between stuff. But we're just moving these rhythms around the bass drums in a way that everybody has a second to, you know, collect themselves before they play again. But with that thing you pointed out, Evan, the buzz into the hand to hand, that is kind of like the exact opposite of that. I think I'd rather get like stung by a bee than play that in front of a DCI judge. Like I pretty sure just watching from this video, it's bass 5 and 6 are playing a buzz roll to the edge and then play a hand to hand from edge to center right out of it. Sounds like super difficult.
The bottom two do that?
Yes.
I must
Coming
admit,
out of like very different technique approaches, like from the where you're gripping and pinching and like
and just like what you hear, you know, like bass drum doesn't sound the same when you're behind it, when you're standing and playing it.
True.
So
yeah.
if I'm that bass 5 and I hear my bass 6 just playing brown noise and then I have to make sextuplets out of that,
I never thought about that.
Insane.
I don't know how I missed this. I got to hear this again.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Okay. I got it that time. They just played hand to hands too, right? The top
Yeah.
drums.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is like
But
a lot of hand hands.
I'm also
What
pointing
year-
certain things out because I don't want to assume somebody listening already knows what a hand to hand sounds like or what it is.
That's fair.
I did not hear the bottom drum one though, and I will throw myself under the bus there. Because something else that you see top drums do a lot, they'll do split singles where they're just back and forth, but that's a hand to hand where they're both offsetting
They're alternating
right left
the hands
between each other. That's what a hand to hand is. And then you'll see also split singles where they're both just playing their right hands or their left hands.
Yep, just
going
splitting
back
the
and
right.
forth. Yep.
Yep.
Or would you call it too when they do hand to hand like doubles, like a splitting inside, like hand to hand?
Are you talking about like if the voicing was like 1-1-2-2 1-1-2-2, but it's twos?
Yeah,
What are you
like
saying?
if it's still like 1-2 1-2 1-2 1-2, but the sticking instead of alternating is like you're playing doubles.
I don't know. I mean, I could poll the bass drum community, but I don't know if there's actually a name for that. Right? It's sort of just like
All right.
split singles still.
The best comment with the best name for that gets pinned as the top comment in the YouTube comment section.
Yeah,
so let us get your suggestions for what they just described.
But what you were saying too, compositionally about just looking at what each individual drummer is doing to make sure there's not weird transitions, that resonates. Like I hadn't really thought about that too, but it makes so much sense too, especially when you're like comparing that to like tenor drumming. It's like, are you playing their rounds and make sure that you're not getting yourself in like a compromising crossover and uncross? Like my brain is kind of equating that similarly to that idea, which that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, my advice is like if you're writing for bass drum and you have a part that you don't know if it's hard or not, like try to play it, even if it's under tempo, and you'll realize like, oh, there's actually like a really weird transition here. A big one is like going from triplets into 16 notes, right? And then you'll have like the bass 2 or the bass 4 play the third partial of the triplet into like the second partial of the 16th note. And that just, it doesn't feel good. And it
so you're doing like 1 lolly,
good.
2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lee, and then to the E of the 16th note. For Lali. Yeah.
Yeah. Just switching meters like that is that's pretty hard to do that just instantaneous between those two notes.
Yeah, I believe it. So, did you just want to call out the feature here? You want to watch more before going to Vanguard?
We can watch some more.
Okay.
I think they do like 3 reps of this feature.
I think this is the last one. We'll just let it play out.
Okay.
Get this buzz transition.
Yeah, that right there. That's insane.
That's
that
tough.
is actually insane.
It's real tough.
I would never do that.
Sorry, I wouldn't even try it.
No, I wouldn't. They do it well though.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, I can't play this. You have to change.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this in finals live.
I'd be like, is this a typo?
Oh, to the end. Yeah. Make it awesome. Here we go.
Oh, I'm sure they do make it awesome.
Works together.
Yeah, that's my
One
main
line in
job.
the background. Someone layer in the middle of that roll.
Yeah. Again, it's like this dynamic
that's one of those
contrast.
things where you're talking about like using the accent to layer over top of that. Booga.
Yep. Yep.
Now, is that just 3s or 4s or what?
It is just 3s.
It's
Yeah.
3s. It sounds so cool though.
I know exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't take a lot. You get your 7 essential rudiments, and you got a good book.
Oh, that was great. Meter shift on the unisons.
Yeah. I'm always listening for those left-hand unisons too, especially like pick up into the downbeat, and they do those well. Yeah. That's just like such a mature sound.
All right, folks, listen for the left-hand unison as the pickup into a phrase. That's what you got to listen for.
That'll determine if they're good or not.
Yep, that's the calling card of a good bass line. Dude, that's tough. The 2 layered onto 1 there.
Yep. They have a lot of those pickups on the left hands. Yeah, this is an example of like something that sounds harder than it is with that mixed meter 3s. But again, it's just like smart writing.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Getting all those upbeat like chord note triplets. Yeah.
Especially muted too. Yeah, that's good
All
stuff.
right. Last one is Vanguard.
It's cool too, because like, you know, all 3 of these groups have been like stylistically a little bit different, but you know, getting the most out of what's in the book, like what you're talking about from a shaping standpoint, of balance and blend standpoint.
Yeah, I'm always like, I think the thing when I walk up to a bass line that I'm looking for is like maturity and professionalism just in their sound.
That's funny because
and
we say the same thing about snare lines and quad lines. It's all about sound, man. It's all about sound quality.
I really don't think bass drum is very different. Obviously we do, some different things, but it's a lot of the same ideals. A lot of the same.
I think, like I've said before, and we've all said it on this video already. Like it's just a lot of the difficulty to appreciate it is, like you said, things will sound hard, but they're really just 3s, and if they're written well, they sound great and played well. It's being able to keep up with the pace, and to dissect bass drum in the moment, you really got to focus on it. And if you're trying to appreciate like what a full battery is doing, it can really pass you by right over your head, and you're just like, all right, cool, sounded great to me, but you don't really dig into what it was to appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, this is Vanguard 15 to close out the video.
Ooh, I love that. Pick up.
And this is one of the best ever in terms of just that maturity. Yeah, that like syncopated twos, those are not easy.
Playing downstrokes into those bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Whew.
Yeah, that's one of those really difficult transitions. The
That
singles
popped
into the
out of
threes.
nowhere too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna back up to
Same
point that
thing again.
transition out. Yeah, because I missed the transition you're talking about. Is it when was it singles or hand to hands on the top drums?
That was singles on the
Okay.
top drums. If you watch if you watch second bass, like he has these singles into the threes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard stuff.
Right there.
That right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Getting that ANCAP.
Yeah. Same thing there with the singles into the unisons. It's just hard to shift your brain that quickly.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going from a single split into something that's on the downbeat.
Either like hitting the gas or the brakes, like with your hands.
Yep. And they just like navigate these dynamics really well. One thing I noticed about this line is that, oh, and you can pause. I don't want to talk too much over their stuff, but they'll play the same height and it'll sound different depending on the context, right? Like they just will like add velocity to get more, more of a bright sound for like some of their acts and stuff. So if they're playing like mezzo forte to piano, that mezzo forte will sound different than if they're going through a crescendo from piano to forte, where they like pass through this dynamic. You know what I mean? Like their accent sound is different from their tap sound, even if it is like the same height. And I sort of have this insight because Robert, that bass two, he taught me at Phantom. But
So they're talking more nuanced, like musical decisions as a musician, and like,
yes.
what I'm hearing is how I would tell this to like somebody who I'm teaching playing like legatos, like 8 on a hand. Like, all right, you playing at piano at 120 is not the same musical touch as you playing piano at 220.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can be heavier at 120 because you're slower, but like you have to lighten up and make a musical decision at 220, or else you're just gonna be slow and out.
Yeah. And bass drum is just really sensitive to your touch because the heads are so loose and it's so resonant. So I think we take more consideration into touch with bass drum, just because you really can hear like if I'm playing with weight or how fast my mallet is moving. It makes like a big difference in their sound.
That makes sense. Get it.
Nice.
Oh. That was so soothing, that whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so pleasant to listen to. Like, I could like set up a picnic next to this.
They just look so in control too.
Yeah,
That
they are,
professionalism
definitely.
you're talking about.
I feel like Rennick in his bass writing utilizes like walking bass figures a lot more than a lot of other rangers nowadays too. Still,
Mm-hmm.
just 8 notes up and down or just passing them around. They don't slap you with stuff like that though at the same time right
Yeah.
after.
left.
See, like they're playing pretty high, but that wasn't like
Killing
as
the
loud
drums.
as
yeah.
exactly. They'll play an individual accent and it'll be louder than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom.
Or you can tell they're playing with more velocity in this phrase than they were the one before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like right there was different than the beginning of the phrase. Like, was that just
Nice.
fours? Did that sound really hard?
Yeah,
but
those
it really
were
was
just fours.
Yeah.
Yep.
But just the rhythmic accuracy.
That body,
and, like,
that body at the end.
That's
you know,
classic SUV.
like you said, just always the consistency of like what they're able to achieve at the end. I think that resonates with me so much just because I always talk about that too. Finding the perfect marriage of like how much sauce can I put in here, but also make it to where I know the kids are going to execute, the members are going to execute this like every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can write the same phrase with, multiple levels of difficulty and it'll sound similar, but at the end of the day, you should be writing for like the people in your baseline, What are they good at and how can I take advantage of those things and also hide the things that they're bad at, right?
That's the same thing we say about writing for snare drums and quads. Like, if the kids are really good at something, lean into it.
Yep. Yeah, a funny example of that at like Mason, we had like the lasers at the end of that Yankee Doodle bass break, and they at the very end of that phrase they play like super fast lasers, and that was easier for them than like the 30-second note lasers that happened before it. Like they would always ice the like crazy fast lasers because they were just naturally good at that, and I was like, all right, I mean that's cool. I just won't ever talk about that.
They got it.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
I think that we're gonna have to dig into like, selfishly, I want to learn more too, just so I'm not such a freaking noob at it. But when this list of bass drum rudiments comes out, I'll be getting my hands on that too.
Yeah, we can totally do an episode on that rudiment dictionary. I mean, there's a lot to break down in there.
Yeah, cool.
That would be a fun podcast.
Yep. But until next time, we're going for 38 minutes, so we'll wrap this up for the audience's sake. But I had a blast doing this. I learned a few things, learned of a few different ways to approach listening to and appreciating bass lines. So always fun to learn and get better. And you guys got anything else?
Those nuggets for arranging, dude, those are good. That's good stuff. Just like thinking about your members, like, oh, play each individual part.
Yep. Oh, before I forget about this too, because I didn't do this at the beginning. One of these videos is George Collins. Go subscribe to George Collins on YouTube. One is Drum Corps Tube. We've watched videos from both of those channels many times. Go subscribe if you're not already. And the 28 Bluecoats bass video is Bass Drum Group. Go subscribe to Bass Drum Group. I'll put the link to all three of these videos in the description down below. Otherwise, all the links are also down below to support us in whatever way you want to. And we'll see everybody in the next video. Thanks, man. This was great.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Peace.